Most of Week 4 is in the books, and it started back on Thursday night with the game between the Seahawks and Cardinals. The Seahawks entered the game coming off of a comfortable win over the Saints, and for as easy of a win as that was in Week 3, the Seahawks just couldn't give their fans back-to-back easy wins. Seattle was up 20-6 midway through the fourth quarter, and it felt like Seattle was in control of this game for the first 50 minutes or so, before Marvin Harrison Jr. had a big touchdown to cut the lead to 20-13. Seattle eventually won 23-20, and a road division win on a short week is a huge win in itself, but the second half play calling was extremely conservative and something to work on in the next couple of weeks. We saw glimpses of it within this game, but when Seattle is on, they're a really good team. We'll see how far they can go and if coaching will limit them, but a road division win in a short week is by far what matters most. With Arizona, I've been high on what this team is building for a while, with the emphasis on a strong front four and run game, but until they make a few changes, specifically at offensive coordinator and potentially quarterback too, which is a much larger and more in-depth conversation, I question how far this team will be able to go. I want the best for Arizona, but I fear that whenever they play a good or great team, they'll inevitably fall short with where they currently are. The Steelers and Vikings played in the first ever Ireland game on Sunday morning as the Steelers defeated the Vikings with a score of 24-21. With the way this game started out, I thought Minnesota was going to dominate in the trenches, but credit to Aaron Rodgers, who had an unworldly fast release for most of this game. And funnily enough, Aaron Rodgers and Carson Wentz started out a combined 20 of 20 in this game, so credit to anyone who had that on their bingo card. But this game was a story of the Steelers playing Pittsburgh Steelers smash-mouth football. The Steelers ran the ball effectively in this game, which was good to see, especially compared to their first 3 weeks, and DK Metcalf also looked really good in this game too. TJ Watt had an insane interception as well, and the Steelers are 3-1. Pittsburgh won, and good for them, but the decision at the end of the game by Mike Tomlin was awful, and I think Steelers fans would agree, but a win across the pond is a win. With Minnesota, there's a lot of frustration through 4 games, and it's a combination of things. Whether it's play clock management by Kevin O'Connell or injuries that have unfortunately played a big part within their season so far through 4 games, it's been a huge roller coaster for Minnesota. When healthy, I do believe this is a formidable team, but it's been a very long year for Minnesota, and we're still in the month of September. The Falcons beat the Commanders 34-27, and I thought this was a tremendous bounce-back win for Atlanta after how they played in Week 3. We broke down Michael Penix's 2 interceptions last week against Carolina, and they were ugly, yet he bounced back with a 300-plus yard game against Washington in Week 4, so credit where it's due. This was a huge win for Atlanta, as, believe it or not, they have a bye week next week, and it was huge for them to improve to 2-2 before their Week 5 bye, and look the way they did in the process. It was also huge for them to have every other team in the division lose in Week 4, and all in all, this was about as good of a week as Falcons fans could have hoped for. Also, I know a lot of people feel this way, but Bijan Robinson is so fun to watch and is a true joy to watch play football. With Washington, they were obviously at a disadvantage with their starting quarterback and wide receiver 1 out in Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin, but allowing 435 yards of offense to an opposing team, whether your starting quarterback is Marcus Mariota or Jaden Daniels, is a problem. I really worry about their corner play and think that's a concern for this team and will continue to be throughout the 2025 season. They also play the Chargers in Week 5, who are coming off of a shocking loss to the Jacksonville Giants in Week 4, and there's a real possibility Washington is 2-3 through 5 games. And speaking of the Chargers and Giants, the Giants won 21-18 in Jackson Dart's first career start, and for everything this fan base has went through, I'm happy for the Giants to get the win. Now, unfortunately, it is expected that Malik Nabers tore his ACL at the time of this video release, and if I have anything to say about MetLife Stadium, it's to permanently change the playing surface to grass, and there's a reason the stadium has the reputation it does. But the Giants defense also did a good job of making Justin Herbert uncomfortable throughout this game, and for a team that had won just 9 games since the start of the 2023 season, well, a win is a win, and thoughts and prayers are up, of course, for Malik Nabers and everyone else who unfortunately got hurt in Week 4. With the Chargers, Omarion Hampton looked good as he ran for over 125 yards, and Quentin Johnston also had 98 yards receiving, but that's about it. Ladd McConkey had just 1 reception on 6 targets, and the offense turned the ball over twice, which set up a 2-play, 3-yard touchdown drive for the Giants, and when you lose by 3 points, well, in a lot of ways, that was the game. For as cliche as this will sound, this was a very anti-Jim Harbaugh loss, and more of a Charger loss, if you will. The biggest thing for Chargers fans is to look ahead and, in a lot of ways, flush this game down the toilet. The Texans defeated the Titans 26-0, and this game was exactly what you'd expect for the Titans. They couldn't move the ball, and their yardage was more than doubled by Houston as they were outgained 353 to 175. The Titans are now 3-18 in the Brian Callahan era, and there was a graphic that popped up on the screen at a point in this game that said the Titans have never overcame a halftime deficit with Brian Callahan as the team's head coach. I don't have anything to say that the Titans fans already haven't heard. The Titans were just beat 26-0 by another 0-3 team. I think this is an all-time bad coach, and I really think there is a possibility he's fired by Monday afternoon, maybe even by the time you're watching this video. There is nothing left here, and it's a shame because Cam Ward's rookie season will, in a lot of ways, be wasted. And when I say nothing left here, I mean with Brian Callahan as the team's head coach. With Houston, a shutout win is a shutout win. However, I do think the first few quarters of this game were particularly rough, and I think Texans fans would also acknowledge that. CJ Stroud took a few unnecessary shots in this game, and I do have some frustration with GM Nick Caserio because of the offensive line, but I do want to credit CJ Stroud for bouncing back the way he did, as well as rookie running back Woody Marks too. Woody Marks finished this game with 119 total yards and 2 touchdowns, and with the way the Texans finished this game, things for now are looking up. There was a slight scare for the Bills in Week 4 as they defeated the Saints 31-19, but there was a point in this game where the Saints were leading in the fourth quarter before a touchdown was called back. The Saints ran for nearly 200 yards as an offense, and my stance for the 2025 Saints that I had before the season I thought was well represented in this game. And it's that they're not a horrible team the way the national media wants to make them out to be, they're just not a good team, and I think there is a difference. I also credit New Orleans for being in this game as they were 15-point underdogs heading in, and I think there are positives to take away from this game for the Saints. They went up to Buffalo and didn't back down once, and with Buffalo, the defense didn't look great at times in this game, but the offense put up 31 points and Buffalo won by double digits. This game in a lot of ways can be summarized as look at the result rather than the process, because Bills fans would agree there were some ugly moments in this game, but whatever people say about the Saints, they are still an NFL team. This is not West Prairie A&M going into Columbus to play Ohio State. It's not close to that. And Josh Allen had over 250 yards and 3 touchdowns, and James Cook had over 130 yards and a touchdown too. And the Buffalo Bills are 4-0. We had a battle of Lake Erie today as Cleveland traveled to the Motor City as the Lions won 34-10. The way this game played out was my biggest fear for the Browns as they were down 20-7 at half, and Cleveland has yet to put up more than 17 points in any of their first 4 games, and whenever Detroit hit 20, I kind of thought this game was over. And having said that, if there is any big takeaway for the Browns, it's that I think we've seen enough of Joe Flacco at this point, and I do think a change at quarterback should be made. You spent a top 100 pick on Dylan Gabriel and a 5th round pick on Shedeur Sanders, and I think it's time to at least see what you have. The Lions put up 34 points, and while that is a lot in itself, the offense didn't look great in this game, and that's also kind of to be expected against an elite defense, but the biggest thing in the Motor City happened, which of course was a Lions win. I thought this game had trap game written all over it after a huge win in Baltimore on Monday night, but the Lions took advantage of Cleveland turnovers, and after the Browns scored the first touchdown of the game, the Lions outscored them 34-3. And at the point of the offense not looking the best, well, it's a 17-game season. You're not going to play your best every single week, yet they still won by 24 points. The Panthers got smoked in New England with a score of 42-13, which was a stark contrast to the game they had in Week 3, in which they beat Atlanta 30-0. Special teams was awful for Carolina in this game, and the defense at times was set up to fail, and they also didn't play good, so multiple things can be true. But my biggest takeaway or question at this point with Carolina is with the offense. Obviously, they've done a lot of losing since Bryce Young was the number 1 overall pick, so the win-loss record with him as the starter isn't exactly fair, but at what point do we say, hey, Bryce Young is not the long-term answer here, and not only that, but there's also a lot wrong with this roster and organization too for that matter. And the big takeaway, if anything for Carolina, is that this is a truly brutal situation. And with the Patriots, this was the complete team win I envisioned for this team over the summer. I was high on the Patriots entering this year, and this was as near of a complete team win as you can possibly have. They put up over 40 points, they had the opponent's backup quarterback enter the game because they were beating them by 30 plus points, and they had their number 1 receiver, who they spent a lot of money on this offseason in free agency, have his first 100-yard game as a Patriot in Stephon Diggs, and it was a wildly successful day for the New England Patriots. The Birds went down to Tampa and improved to 4-0 with a 31-25 win. It's hard to be too upset about a win in which you put up 31 points on the road, and especially when it's against a team that will probably make the playoffs in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and probably win their division too, but there is some reason for Birds fans to be concerned. And the biggest, of course, is Jalen Hurts had 0 passing yards in the second half in week 4. They had 24 first half points and were absolutely rolling fresh off of a come-from-behind win over the Rams, then reverted to the first half team they were against the Rams in week 3. And I know there's cause for concern in some ways with the Birds, but they were 2-2 through 4 weeks last year and won the Super Bowl. And they haven't lost a game since September 29th of 2024 when Jalen Hurts starts and finishes a game, meaning they will be fine. Now with Tampa, they're 3-1 after a difficult game against the defending champs. They also allowed a blocked punt for a touchdown early in the game, which of course is a rarity, and to be fair to both teams here, both were out multiple players. Tampa still outgained Philly by more than 100 yards, and they are still a really talented team, and like with the Chargers, who also lost in week 4, I think Tampa Bay will be fine in the long run. Marathon, not sprint mentality. The Bears won in Sin City with a score of 25-24, and this was a game where the Raiders turned the ball over 4 times in a 1-point loss. This was a huge win for the Bears because if they enter the bye with a 1-3 record, then it's a lot of same old Bears, and to be completely truthful, this was an ugly win for the Bears, but Bears fans know this best, that an ugly win is always better than a pretty loss. Cairo Santos went 4 for 4 in this game, and what was huge for Chicago was the offense stepping up when they needed to at the end, and the special teams coming through with a blocked field goal when it mattered. And I truly believe the 2024 Bears lose this game. And with this win, Ben Johnson now has more Sunday road wins as a head coach than Matt Eberflus had. Now with the Raiders, it starts with Geno Smith, who now has 2 3-interception games in the first 4 games of the year. The Raiders turned the ball over 4 times in this game, so it didn't necessarily come down to this specific play, but I also didn't understand the decision to run the ball behind a backup left tackle after Colton Miller went out of the game due to injury. I feel bad for Raiders fans, and even within this game, it was like a home game for the Bears because of how well they traveled. The Raiders are now 1-3, and they play the Colts and Chiefs on the road in 2 of their next 3 games, and I have a lot of questions with this team moving forward. The Rams defeated the Colts 27-20, and I know the initial thought is to say, well, Daniel Jones threw 2 interceptions, so Trash Can Dan or Danny Pennies is back, but I think the Colts will be fine in the long run. They lost by 7 points, and within this game, Adonai Mitchell had a 75-yard reception that he dropped at the goal line for what would have been a touchdown and should have been a touchdown. Unfortunately, Adonai Mitchell also had a holding penalty on a 53-yard run by Jonathan Taylor that was called back, and when you factor in those penalties, along with 2 interceptions from Daniel Jones in a game Indy lost by a touchdown against a premier NFC team on the road, well, I'm not going to overreact here, especially with how Daniel Jones played in the first few games of the year. The Colts will be fine. Now with the Rams, this was a tremendous game for Matt Stafford as he threw for nearly 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Puka Nacua is on the cusp of entering the best receiver in the NFL discussion. He had 3 110-yard or more performances so far in 2025, and the only game he didn't have 110 or more yards was a game against Tennessee, in which he had 91 yards along with a 45-yard rushing touchdown. But aside from Stafford and Puka, there are definite questions with the Rams, but 3-1 is 3-1, and a win is a win. The Jags went out to San Francisco and beat the 49ers 26-21, and Travis Etienne had his second 100-yard rushing game of the season. I'll be honest, I thought the 49ers were going to win this heading into the game, so credit to the Jags for going out to the Bay Area and getting it done. The Jags defense in this game forced 4 turnovers, and they've now forced 3+ turnovers in each of the first 4 games, and the Jags defense is a problem. The biggest thing with this team is getting the offense going, which I do believe will happen as the season progresses. Brian Thomas Jr. had caught just 7 of 25 passes in the first 3 games of the year, but hauled in 5 of 7 targets in this game. Travis Hunter also had a big catch in this game over the middle, and the Jags are 3-1 for the first time in nearly 10 years. And in Liam Cohen's words, Duval. And with the 49ers, the offensive line is a problem. They have 0 rushing touchdowns in 4 weeks, and they also have the highest pressure rate in the NFL. And it's frustrating to watch for Niners fans, and understandably so. It is, of course, worth mentioning that George Kittle, a really good blocking tight end, is out and has been for a few weeks, but I don't think he single-handedly brings this team from one of the worst, if not the worst unit, to a top 10 or top 5 unit overnight. There was a lot of things that went wrong for the 49ers in week 4, and it could get worse as they play the Rams on a short week in week 5. The Chiefs beat the Ravens 37-20 in Week 4, and this game did not feel that close throughout. The Chiefs dominated this game, and for anyone who is one of the Chiefs to feel like the old Chiefs, well, this game was it. Patrick Mahomes threw 4 touchdowns, and everyone ate in this offense. The Chiefs won, and the Raiders and Chargers lost, and this was a tremendous day for Kansas City. I don't want to overreact and definitively say they're back, especially against Baltimore's defense, but this was a huge win for Kansas City, and I couldn't be happier for them. The Ravens have several injuries, and while that is a big thing to note, the defense is also a major problem in Baltimore, and even that may be underselling it. In 4 games to start the 2025 season, Baltimore has allowed 41 points to the Bills, 17 points to a 40-year-old Joe Flacco, 38 points to the Lions, and 37 to the Chiefs. And if Baltimore has postseason aspirations, well, they're not going to be playing the Browns when it matters. No offense, Cleveland. Take your choosing of Buffalo or Kansas City or even a team like Indy, who has put up 29 or more points in 3 of the first 4 games too. I know injuries play a factor, but this defense has been terrible all year, and giving Derrick Henry 8 carries in this game was certainly a choice. And one of the problems for Baltimore is this was an all-in year, yet they came out unprepared and have significantly underperformed in the first quarter of the 2025 season, and the Ravens at this point in time are in a very bad situation. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe as it helps the channel tremendously, and I cannot thank you guys enough for the support. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.